Most people read the Gospels and see one thing: miracles. But when you slow down and look carefully, you see something far more precise. Jesus did not heal the same way twice. Sometimes he spoke a single word, and a servant was healed miles away, without ever being present. Sometimes he simply declared freedom, and a woman bent double for 18 years stood upright in an instant. Sometimes he made clay from the ground, pressed it onto blind eyes, and sent the man to wash. Sometimes he let a woman touch the edge of his garment in a crowd, and power left him without him even initiating the contact. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, in specific moments, with specific people, Jesus chose to use his hands. That choice was never random. Every time Jesus reached out and touched someone, something particular was happening in the person, in the moment, in the invisible dimension that his Aramaic words were always addressing. Today we are going inside that most intimate method, the laying on of hands. Touch that carried a frequency no translation has fully captured until you hear the Aramaic words he spoke in those exact moments. To help you receive every layer of these sounds with full precision, a visual pronunciation guide will appear on your screen as we move through each word. Let the sound enter you. Let your body feel the frequency, not just your mind understand the meaning. This teaching is grounded in the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel that preserved more of Jesus' original Aramaic words than any other, because it was written closest to the eyewitnesses who heard his actual voice. The 4 Aramaic words we explore today are Nura, Ephatha, Talitha Kum, and Asuta. Each one lived in a moment of touch. Each one carries a dimension of healing that is available to you right now. Stay until the end of this video. What I have prepared for you there is not a closing thought. It is a living practice, the protocol of transformation that will change how you use your hands forever. The touch of Jesus was never ordinary, and neither is yours. 5 ways Jesus healed, and why the hands were different. Before we enter the power of the hands, we need to see the full picture. Because the reason Jesus sometimes chose touch, and sometimes did not, is itself the teaching. The Gospels record at least 5 distinct methods of healing that Jesus used. The first was the spoken word alone, at a distance, as when he healed the centurion's servant in Matthew 8, without ever traveling to the house. Pure authority, no physical contact. The second was the spoken declaration in presence, as when he looked at the woman bent double in Luke 13, called her forward and said, "Woman, you are set free." Then he placed his hands on her. The word came first. The touch confirmed it. The third was through physical materials: clay, saliva, water, as in John 9, where he made mud and placed it on blind eyes. The healing moved through matter itself. The fourth was through the faith contact of others. The woman with the issue of blood in Mark 5, who touched only the edge of his garment and felt the healing power leave him before he had said a word. And the fifth, the one we explore today, was the deliberate, intentional laying on of hands. Jesus reaching out and choosing to touch. This fifth method appears consistently in the most intimate moments of the Gospels, when the person was isolated, when they were considered untouchable by the culture, when the healing needed to reach not just the body, but the deepest interior of the person's identity. The leper in Matthew 8, the deaf man in Mark 7, the dead girl in Mark 5, the blind man in Mark 8. In every one of these moments, Jesus did not just speak from a distance. He closed the space between them. He touched. That closing of space was itself part of the healing. And the Aramaic words he spoke in those moments carry the frequency of exactly what that touch was transmitting. Nura, the divine light that flows through touch. In the Aramaic mystical tradition that formed the spiritual world Jesus inhabited, the hands were never understood as merely physical instruments. They were understood as channels. The word for this divine current, the light that flows through consecrated human contact, is Nura. Nura, in Aramaic, means fire, light, the luminous divine energy. It appears in the Lord's Prayer tradition, Abun, the divine breath. Is understood in Aramaic mysticism as a source from which Nura continuously radiates outward, into and through those who are aligned with it.
Ow.
When Jesus reached out his hand, he was not reaching with flesh alone. In the Aramaic understanding, his touch carried Nura, the living light of a biwu, transmitted through the point of physical contact directly into the body and soul of the person he touched. This explains something that the Greek translations cannot. Mark 5:30, when the woman touched his garment, Jesus said, "I perceived power going out from me." The Greek word used is dunamis, but the underlying Aramaic concept is neura, the divine light that flows directionally, that moves, that has origin and destination. This is not metaphor. In the Aramaic tradition, neura was understood as a real transmission, the way sound transmits through air, the way warmth transmits through contact. The hands of someone living in alignment with the divine source were understood as literal conductors of this frequency. When Jesus chose to touch, he was choosing to make the transmission direct, not at a distance, not mediated by faith in a garment. The full current of neura, through his hands, into the body of someone who had perhaps never been touched with dignity in years. That is what his hands were carrying. That is the frequency the Aramaic tradition names. And that is what begins to move in you when you understand what the touch of Jesus truly was. The words of Jesus in Aramaic open different pathways back to divine alignment. Each one represents a frequency capable of restoring something fragmented in human consciousness. Understanding these frequencies is the first step, but mastering their vibration in your daily life is where the true miracle happens. Aramaic words carry a sound dimension that is deeply vibrational. To help you embody each frequency with precision, I created a collection of 5 sacred study guides, each one dedicated to a specific Aramaic declaration and its practice. Inside you'll find the correct pronunciation, guided meditations, and daily activation rituals. The link is pinned in the comments. Your deeper transformation begins there. Aphatha, the word that opens what touch reaches. In Mark 7, Jesus encounters a man who is deaf and can barely speak. The people bring the man to him and beg Jesus to lay his hand on him. What follows is one of the most precisely described healing moments in all of the Gospels. Jesus takes the man aside away from the crowd, privately. Then he places his fingers into the man's ears. He touches his tongue with moisture. He looks up to heaven. He sighs a deep interior movement. And then he says in Aramaic, Ephatha. Ephatha means be opened. But in Aramaic, the word carries dimensions that be opened in English cannot hold. The root implies not merely the unlocking of a physical door, but the dissolving of every barrier, physical, emotional, spiritual, that stands between a person and their full capacity to receive and to express. Notice the sequence Jesus chose. First the touch, then the word. His fingers in the ears before Aphatha was spoken. The physical contact prepared the channel. The Aramaic frequency completed the opening. The Church has preserved Aphatha in the rite of baptism to this day. The priest touches the ears and mouth of the newly baptized and speaks this word. The ancient tradition understood that the opening Jesus enacted in Mark 7 was not only for one deaf man, it was a demonstration of what touch, aligned with divine frequency, can do in any human being who is closed. We are all, in some part of us, still closed. There are ears that stopped listening after too much pain, mouths that stopped speaking after too much rejection, parts of the body that contracted around old wounds and never fully reopened. Ephatha was spoken once in Decapolis. But the Aramaic tradition holds that the frequency does not expire. The word that opened a deaf man's ears is still sounding, still reaching into the closed places of every person who can receive it. If something in you is shifting as you receive this teaching, trust that movement. It is your original nature recognizing itself. The 5 sacred study guides were designed to walk beside you as that remembrance deepens. Layer by layer, word by word, frequency by frequency. Each guide carries the full context of these sacred declarations, their sound, their meaning, and their power to dissolve what no longer belongs to you. The link is pinned in the comments. Your return to wholeness has a next step. Talitha cum, when the hand and the voice act as one. There is a moment in Mark 5 that is unlike any other in the Gospels, not because of what Jesus did, but because of how Mark chose to record it. Jairus' daughter has died. The mourners are already wailing. Jesus enters the room, takes the child's hand, and speaks 2 words in Aramaic that Mark refuses to translate into Greek first. He gives them to us raw, exactly as they were spoken. Talitha cum. Mark then translates, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." but the Aramaic carries something the translation leaves behind. Talitha is a term of profound tenderness, etymologically related to the word for lamb. It was the word a loving parent would use with a child, not a command. An invitation wrapped in intimacy. Kum is the command. Arise, stand, come into life. But it rises from the ground of Talitha, from the tender address. The authority and the love are inseparable in the same breath. And before either word was spoken, Jesus took her hand. This is the fullest expression of what healing through touch meant in the Aramaic tradition. The hand was extended not as a technique but as a relationship. Nura, the divine light, cannot fully transmit into a person who feels like an object being acted upon. The touch of Jesus always carried personhood first. You are seen, you are held, you are loved. And from that ground, Kum, what was dead, arose. Not because a command was issued, but because the command was issued from within a touch that the dead girl's body recognized as safe enough to respond to. This is the teaching hidden in Talitha Kum. The healing power in the hands of Jesus was never separate from his love. The frequency and the tenderness were the same thing, expressed simultaneously through the same hands in the same moment. Asuta, the healing that flows from the sent one. There is a word in the Aramaic tradition that does not appear verbatim in the Gospel accounts, but whose meaning saturates every healing Jesus performed through touch. It is the word that the ancient Aramaic-speaking communities used to name what was happening when the divine power moved through a human being into another. That word is asuta. Asuta means healing, wholeness, the transmission of divine health from one vessel to another. In Aramaic communities, it was used as both a greeting and a blessing. Asuta Neoilic, may healing be upon you. It was the acknowledgement that healing is not generated by the healer. It flows through them. This distinction is everything. Jesus never healed from his own power as a source, healed as a channel, a human being so completely aligned with a boon, the living divine breath, that Nura could flow through his hands without resistance, without ego, without the obstruction that comes when a person believes the power is theirs. In Luke 8, when the woman touched his garment and power left him, Jesus said, "Somebody touched me. I perceived power going out from me." He did not say, "I healed her." He described what happened as a flow, something that moved through him in response to her faith. That is asuta, the transmission, not the performance. This is the most important thing the Aramaic tradition has to say about healing through touch. The hands of Jesus were extraordinary, not because they were biologically different from anyone else's hands. They were extraordinary because of what he had emptied himself of fear, ego, separation from Abwoon, and what he had allowed to fill that space instead. Asuta is available wherever there is a human being willing to become that kind of channel. This is not a claim that anyone can replicate the miracles of Jesus. It is the recognition that the same Nura that flowed through his hands has never stopped flowing, and that hands offered in genuine love, free from performance, are still channels the divine recognizes. Every person Jesus healed through touch had one thing in common before he reached them. They had been defined by their condition. The leper was untouchable, declared so by law, by religion, by the entire social structure of his world. The deaf man had been closed off from community by his inability to hear or speak clearly. The dead girl had been reduced to a body to be mourned. The blind man had been invisible in the most complete sense, present but unseen. When Jesus chose to touch each one of them, he was doing something that preceded the physical healing. He was refusing to accept the definition the world had placed on them. His touch said, before any word was spoken, "You are not your condition. You are not what they have called you. I see what you actually are, and it is whole." This is why the Aramaic words that accompanied his touch carried such force. Aphetha spoken to someone the culture had written off as permanently closed. Kalitha, Koum, spoken to someone everyone in the room had already accepted as permanently gone. The words were not fighting against physical limitation. They were aligning the invisible reality of asuta, the divine wholeness, with what the body was being invited to become. The touch was the permission. The Aramaic word was the frequency. Together they created the condition in which healing was not a miracle imposed from outside, but a recognition of what was already true in the realm of Nura. Invite it to become visible in the physical. This is what it means to be reached by Jesus, not fixed, recognized, seen as whole before the healing appears. Called back into what you always were, before the condition, before the label, before the years of being defined by what was closed or broken or gone. Did you feel something shift today? Did these words touch something deeper in you? If they did, leave the word frequency activated in the comments. That is your confirmation that the light within you is moving. And when the light moves, it needs a path. Discover our complete collection of 5 sacred study guides created to carry your transformation beyond this moment. The link is pinned in the comments. Your next step is waiting. Protocol of transformation, the Aramaic practice of healing through touch. You stayed. This is what I kept for you. This is not a closing reflection. This is a living practice, drawn directly from the 4 Aramaic frequencies we explored today, structured so you can use it immediately, with your own hands, in your own life. The 4 frequencies pronunciation guide: Nura, pronounced N-O-O-R-A. Let the no rise from the chest, full and open. Ra trails gently, like light spreading outward. When you say it, feel warmth in your hands. This is the sound of the divine light that flows through consecrated contact. Ephatha, pronounced Ephatha. Ephatha, soft breath. Fuff opens wide. Let the mouth open fully as you say it, as though the word itself is demonstrating what it means. This is the sound of opening spoken to anything in you that has been closed by pain, rejection, or fear. Talitha kum, pronounced Talitha kum. Talitha is tender and slow. Do not rush it. Kum is firm and grounded, rising from the belly. Let the tenderness come first, always. This is the sound of love that commands the frequency that calls life back into what the world has declared finished. Asuta, pronounced A-su-tah-o, is open and releasing. Su hums at the throat. Th lands quietly. This is the sound of divine health moving through a channel not generated by you, but flowing through you. Let it feel like something larger than yourself moving in your hands. The practice how and when to use it. Use this practice when you feel called to offer healing presence to another person, a sick family member, a grieving friend, someone in physical or emotional pain. It can also be used on yourself, placing your own hands on areas of your body that carry tension, pain, or illness. Begin in stillness. If with another person, ask their permission before touching. Breathe slowly until the inner noise quiets. Place your hands on or above the person or yourself. Feel the contact. Then move through the 4 frequencies internally or in a quiet voice. Say N-U-R-A and consciously open yourself as a channel. Release any belief that the healing depends on your ability or your worthiness. You are not the source. You are the passage. Let Neuro remind your hands of what they are carrying. Say Ephatha and direct the frequency toward whatever is closed. You do not need to know what is closed. The word knows. Let it reach into the person's body and soul and address what needs opening without your interference. Say Talitha kum, first with tenderness, then with authority. Let the tender address come from your heart, the recognition that this person is not their condition, that you see their wholeness before you see their pain. And let kum rise from that love. Arise, return, come back. Close with asta, spoken as a declaration that the transmission has been real. Not I healed you, but healing has flowed. The divine channel has been open. What was sent has been received. The expected effect according to the teaching of Jesus. According to the demonstration of Jesus in the Gospels, healing through touch was never about the healer's power. It was about the healer's alignment, their willingness to become a clear channel for neuro. Free from performance, free from ego, free from the need to produce a result. The effect of this practice is not guaranteed in any specific physical outcome. What is consistent in every account where Jesus chose to touch is this: the person who was touched felt seen, felt recognized as whole, felt the contact of someone who refused to accept the world's definition of them. That recognition, that transmission of Asuta through Nura, spoken with Ephatha and Talitha, Koum, is itself the healing. Whether the physical condition changes immediately, gradually, or in ways the eye cannot measure. The interior reality has shifted, and from that shift, the body follows. This is what the hands of Jesus carried. This is what the Aramaic words preserved. This is what your hands can carry too. Not because you are Jesus, but because the same neuro that moved through him has never stopped looking for channels willing to be opened. Ephatha, be opened. Your hands included. We're just scratching the surface of this ancient power. Get ready, because in our next video I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation. Right now, before you close this video, come to the comments and tell us, what did you feel? What shifted? You read every single response. And if this teaching found you today, subscribe to this channel. Every week we go deeper into the ancient frequency codes that were always meant to be yours.